Welcome back to ReadingBear. Today, we will take a look at some new ProRevenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, Refuse to Vacate a Private Parking Spot? Your car is now in an impound lot in another country. I have lived in an apartment complex in Lisbon, Portugal, where is important for the last 4 years. If anyone's from here, you'll know parking is hell. Fortunately, my building has a private garage. However, as is often the case, some parking places are more difficult to park in than others. I have one of the easier ones. Last year I was offered a job abroad and took it. Thought I'd be nice, parked my car at my parents' where they have plenty of space, and left a notice in the building elevator that went along the lines of, I'm the owner of 3B and will be away for at least 6 months, feel free to use my parking spot. Ended up being away for longer, almost a year. I came back to see my parking spot occupied, which was okay, since I offered for it to be used. Put another notice in the elevator, this time to say I was back and would use the parking spot again. I gave it 2 days and picked my car up from my parents. Went into my garage, and my space was still being used. I had to park somewhere on the street and decided to give it another day. The day after, it was occupied again by the same car. I asked a couple of neighbors, and figured out it belonged to a lady living 2 stories above me. Went up to talk to her, and she immediately got defensive and said that her parking spot is very difficult for her to park in, and since I was away for longer than I had announced I lost the space, which is stupid logic, as the spots are bought with the apartment, it literally belongs to me. She also told me I couldn't use her parking space instead as she was using it for storage. I went to the building admin, who said he'd talk to her. He did and came back shaking his head. Nothing. I sent a registered letter telling her to stop using my space and giving her 48H to take her car elsewhere. The next day I saw the unopened letter in the garbage bin beside the mailboxes. I ended up scouting my garage, waiting for her to leave, and would immediately park my car, hoping she'd take the hint. She didn't, and we ended up doing this dance for a few weeks. Up until the day I came back to see my entire driver's side keyed. That was the final straw. I talked to a friend, who owns a towing company. We chose a Saturday morning. The last few weeks she hadn't left home on Saturdays. I knew as I had been watching her car like a hawk, so I thought we'd have a good chance of her not noticing anything until everything was done, and towed her car. The plan initially was to leave the car just down the road. But that felt too close and too easy. Then I thought about leaving it in a city about 15 minutes away, but it still didn't feel quite right. My friend jokingly said, let's leave it in Madrid. FYI, Madrid is in Spain, about 600 kilometers to 375 miles away. I knew he was joking, but Madrid did feel right. I asked if he had enough time. He had, so off we went. Once we got to Madrid, we went out for lunch, strolled around the city, and waited until it got dark and the streets empty. In the meantime, we had already decided on where to leave the car, a handicapped parking close to a police station. And so we did. As a bonus, my friend also took both license plates off the car. Then we drove back home. It has been 2 weeks, and I haven't seen her car since. One of these days I might leave a letter in her mailbox telling her to contact Madrid police, but in the meantime, I'll enjoy being able to use my parking whenever I want to. The next one is titled, Try to Milk Me for Money Over a Mistake? Cool, take me to court then. So, it's been about 4 years since this happened. I was about 18 at the time, working for a security company. There were constant call-offs and no-shows, have no idea why. But being so young and naive, I was constantly working 16-hour shifts and not coming home until 8 AM. Also, I lived with my father at the time. The time frame of this was around the 4th of July. I finally had a day off, and my best friend was back in town for vacation. We decided to get together and chip in on some good old American fireworks. To be fair, I have had nothing but bad experiences with fireworks, so I had no idea how this would be any different. We got home with the fireworks, and we laid them all out on the floor, sparklers, bottle rockets, cakes, and Roman candles. I say, why don't we mess around with some sparklers since it's still not dark yet? Great idea. We go into my backyard, where it hasn't rained in well over 2 months, and it is extremely dry. You see the problem here? One of the little sparkies from mine and my friend's sparkler made contact with the ground and made two small fires that quickly spread to a large area. I ran as fast as I could to grab the garden hose and quickly started spraying down the fire. It was no use, it was spreading faster than I could spray it. I handed my friend the hose and called 911. What felt like hours was only 4 minutes, and the fire was spreading to the neighbor's fence. The neighbor came outside, and they were fairly calm to grab their hose and spray down the fence, along with the dead grass in her yard. The fire department shows up finally, and I tell my friend, only one of us needs to get in trouble. You should leave. He was reluctant to leave because he felt equally responsible, but I convinced him. I didn't want him to get in trouble and have to drop out of college. My neighbor was super chill about the entire situation at first. I told her that we could talk about replacing the fence and get some quotes to repair it. She was just super grateful that everyone was okay. About 2 hours after the fire, the arson fire investigator came to question me about the fire. I told him the truth. I said I was in the backyard by myself playing with fireworks and accidentally lit the ground on fire. I had gotten off that day without being hit by any charges and was commended for being honest. Here is where it goes downhill very fast. About a week later, I get a knock on the door from the neighbor. I opened the door and she handed me 2 pieces of paper for me to look at. There was a quote for the fence valued at around $4,000 and an estimate for lawn care valued around $6,000. These were really shady and just typed out on a Microsoft Word document, no logo or company name. She then adds, I will also be having you pay my water bill for 3 months because the new yard will need lots of water. Now, the fence this woman had before was raggedy and falling apart. Her yard? Dead grass, weeds everywhere, never mowed it. Now looking at this paper, she wants a mahogany fence and a brand new backyard with flowers and trimmed hedges. I said, I need to get an estimate myself, this doesn't feel right. She says, remember, you agreed to replace my fence, and a real man keeps promises. I shut the door and called my dad to tell him about what just happened. He flipped out and told me, son, don't you give that idiot a single dime. He gives me the number to his handyman and tells me to take care of it. The next day, I had the guy come out for an estimate, and the neighbor ran outside flailing her arms. I did not give you permission to get an estimate on my fence. Technically, it separates the property line, so it's both of our fences. She calls the cops on me for having a contractor, and they ultimately can't do a single thing because I'm on my property. He quickly finishes the estimate off at $1,200. I also knew a guy who did lawn care from my time working at the grocery store. He estimated the lawn reseeding while she was away from the house to be about $800. After I get these estimates, I give copies to the woman, and she is having none of it. I don't know these people. I don't want them near my house. They're probably really sh*TTY contractors. I said, no, I know them personally. They are really nice people and do great work. She shut the door in my face, and I went on my way. I ended up working a 16-hour shift that night and got home at 8 a.m., and this woman comes knocking on my door at 9 a.m. and demanded I speak to her. I explained, I would really love to do this, but I just got home, and I have to be back at work in less than 5 hours. I need to sleep. She goes, what kind of lazy butthole sleeps in until 2 p.m.? At this point, I had about lost it and told her, you can either accept my $2,000 for my quotes or kiss my butt and get nothing. She stood there for a while with her mouth gaped open, but she accepted my offer and planned to meet down at the notary the next morning. I spent that night after I got off work writing a contract and gathering the $2,000 in cash. The next morning, I wake up and grab this contract to meet down at the notary. I was thrilled to finally be done with this broad and never speak to her again. I waited for her for over 3 hours, and she didn't show up. I get a call from her saying, I'm sorry, the $2,000 isn't enough. I'm having my guys start work on this project, and you will be paying me the full price. Oh really? After that, I did not say a single word to her, and I watched for a few months as these guys turned her backyard into an oasis, complete with a small pond, brand new sod and flowers, the whole 9 yards. Come to find out, she had plans to remodel these things for a long time and was just waiting for the opportunity to go through with it. Also in this time, she used her remodel funds to go on a trip to Hawaii. You know how I found out about this? She was bragging about it on the neighborhood Facebook group and didn't know I was in it. I have a different Facebook name than my real name. Are you ready for the revenge? Now 4 months after the fire and all the remodels, I get served papers to go to court for $10,300. At 18 years old, I'm having to hire a lawyer to work my case. When we finally do get into court, I lay everything out, the quotes, being harassed multiple times, not showing up after agreeing to a deal, not wanting me to get my own quotes, required by law, by the way, and her bragging about screwing me out of money. And I have proof of all of this. The judge looked at her and said, "Ma'am, with all due respect, you're out of your mind. Not only did this young man tell the truth of what happened, he offered to pay you more than he was supposed to. Your lawn was already dead before the fire occurred, therefore, he is only responsible for the fence of $1,200. I will also deduct from this his lawyer fees, $800. So, I burned this woman's fence down, and all I'm having to give her is $400? Cool. She took a huge financial loss from this. Not sure how much the Hawaii trip cost her, but she was in serious debt. She ended up having to sell the house because of it and moved into a smaller house. Haven't heard anything from her since. The last one is titled, She was left with no other choice but to come up with an elaborate plan. My guilty pleasure is karaoke. I love going to local bars when there's a karaoke night on. I have a musical background and I studied music at Cambridge University, UK, graduating with first-class honours for my bachelor's degree and my master's in music performance. I also trained at the Royal Academy for a while. I specialised in music theory and I am now a teacher in a local college. I am primarily a classical guitarist, but I am also grade 8 standard on piano and flute. I am also lucky to be blessed with perfect pitch. I have never studied vocals or ever had any singing lessons, but my musical aptitude and perfect pitch makes me a decent singer, and above the average ability of most people who get up to sing at karaoke. I don't go to karaoke to show off or anything, I enjoy listening to everyone, good and bad, and just generally having a laugh with my friends. I met the DJs Kate and Peter, a husband and wife DJ team from the next town over, about 8 years ago when I started going to a weekly karaoke at a local bar, and over time we have become close friends. I follow them to every bar they go to for karaoke, help them out with their company social media pages and act as unofficial tech support. They also occasionally give me some DJ work when they are double booked. However, despite this, I am not an employee of the company, I just like to help out and I do not get paid for my tech work, and I make a flat rate of £100 for each gig they give me, they get the surplus. This is important later. So about 3 years ago, Kate and Peter were booked for a recurring monthly karaoke at a members-only social club in a town about 15 miles away. I already knew a lot of the people who were members there from karaoke at other bars they had come to, specifically a bar which was just up the road from this club. One of these people, Bill, was on the committee for the club. He was a good friend of mine, so I had a chat with him, and made sure that although I was not a member at this point, I was okay to come to the karaoke once a month. At the first karaoke night at the club, I met Jane and Robert. I learned that Jane was the entertainment manager on the committee, and Robert was a major narcissist who thought he was Elvis Presley reincarnated, with an ego the size of Europe. He only sings Elvis songs and tries to do the dance moves to match. He even has at least 5 full-blown Elvis costumes he wears, even on a casual basis. He thought he was the best singer in the county. He really wasn't, he was really quite bad, and I quickly learned that he instantly disliked anyone who was a better singer than him. He was right up Jane's butt, and she would do anything he said. Initially, they were both nice to me, but after I sang, they would refuse to talk to me despite going out of my way to talk to them every month, and I had never shown any hostility towards them. This went on for a year. Bear in mind that Jane and Robert are in their mid to late 60s, I'm in my early 30s, and it was like dealing with a couple of children. I swear the students I teach are more mature than they'll ever be. In the end, I gave up trying to be nice and salvage some sort of friendship, and only spoke to them when I had to. Over the course of the year, Robert would instruct Jane to stop certain people singing, he wouldn't allow anyone else to sing Elvis songs, there are hundreds on the hard drive FFS, and even tried to get people banned from the karaoke and the club. They had a major falling out with my friend Bill. He sang an Elvis song without Robert's permission, which was escalated to the head of the committee, but no action taken as there was a lack of evidence, despite several witness statements in Bill's favor. At this point they had never done anything like this towards me, so I wouldn't get involved in any of the disputes. They really upset a lot of people, but there wasn't much that could be done about it as the committee would always say there was a lack of evidence. Suddenly the karaoke stopped. Jane didn't rebook Peter and Kate. We later learned that Robert was moaning to Jane over the bill incident and demanded that the karaoke stopped. At this point, I had made many friends at the club and had also started going to their monthly quiz nights, so I had decided to become a full-paying member. I am a helpful and kind person by nature, and I am always more than happy to give my input if I can help. I got involved in the quizzes. I even wrote and ran a few, for free, and passed on details of my musical connections for when they wanted live music, which was at a reduced rate for the club as the booking had essentially come through me for my friends and connections. I helped to update their till systems, install Wi-Fi, made posters and helped promote events at the club on the internet and social media, all for free. The management loved me. Everyone was disappointed at the karaoke being cancelled, as it was always busy and everyone had a great time despite Jane and Robert. It took us a few weeks to find out the truth of why it was cancelled, and there was a minor uproar, which I did not get involved in. However, Jane stood her ground and nothing could be done because she was the entertainment manager, so the buck stopped with her. Around 6 months later, Jane decided to start the karaoke nights again. I assume Robert was fed up with not being able to show off, and booked Kate and Peter again for the following month. Everyone was very happy, as the karaoke was always popular, brought in new members and good revenue for the club. So the karaoke night rolls around, and by the end of the night, I realized that my last 2 turns were skipped and Robert sang the most songs. Suspecting something fishy, the next day I went round to Kate and Peter's house for coffee to find out what, if anything, had happened. Lo and behold, my suspicions were right. Kate told me that about halfway through the night, Jane had approached them and said, "Can you not let my name sing anymore? She's really annoying everyone and we don't want professional singers putting people off and she's making people leave." I was upset. I wasn't angry at Kate and Peter. They had to comply with what Jane said because she had threatened non-payment and no more work there if they didn't. They did what they had to do. After being a regular at this club, a full-paying member for nearly a year, and all of the work I had put into helping the place for free, I couldn't believe their audacity and I was annoyed that they couldn't even say it to my face. So the next day, I went to the club knowing Jane would be there in order to confront her. I hate confrontation and I'm usually pretty easygoing, but I wasn't going to be singled out and lied about. I've always been the type of person that if you've got something to say or a problem with me, come and talk to me and we'll try and work it out. I really can't stand being talked about behind my back. Before talking to Jane, I went and spoke to a few of my friends who were there. I needed to know if they had thought or said I was annoying them with my presence at the karaoke, and if any of them had said anything to Jane or Robert before I confronted to her, so I could get my facts straight. They were shocked and I learned that the only one *ching about me was Robert. It seemed that I was next on his hit list. So I approached Jane. This is how the conversation went down to the best of my memory. Me: "Hi Jane, can I talk to you for a minute?" Jane: "Ugh, I guess so, but I'm very busy." Me: "I just want to know why you and Robert stopped me from singing at the karaoke the other night?" Jane: "Everyone was getting annoyed with you and we don't want professional singers at the karaoke and it's not fair anyway because you work for Kate and Peter." Me: "But I'm not a professional singer Jane, as you know I'm a guitarist and I'm a teacher. I have never made a living from singing nor have I ever been employed by Kate and Peter. I spoke to everyone and no one else was annoyed with me, it was literally just Robert. No one left because of me either." Jane: "That's all lies. You're just being an entitled brat." Me: "You think that I'm the entitled one? And you're saying that I don't know what my own job is and that everyone else here is a liar too?" Jane: "You should know that you're not welcome here. No one likes you. You should just leave and stay away. I'm going to talk to management and get you banned." Me: "Okay Jane, you do that. This is obviously a lost cause and fruitless conversation." Jane: "You are the lost cause. All you've done is upset people since you came here." At this point, I left, more upset than I was before, and started plotting my revenge. Thankfully I wasn't banned because I was on good terms with the management after all the work I had done for them. I knew my plan would take time to pull off, and this may seem like a really petty reason for revenge to you, but nearly everyone at the club had suffered at the hands of Jane and Robert at some point. Some worse than me, and in my opinion, they needed to get their comeuppance. They needed to know that the club did not revolve around them and that they can't treat people this way. I doubted anyone else would go up against them. I was willing to be in it until the bitter end, and I got way more than I had hoped for. I started going to the club more regularly than before. I needed to make friends with everyone for my end move, and people love to talk and gossip. I wanted all the dirt on Jane and Robert that I could get my hands on. I heard rumors that Robert was acting as an unlicensed agent for bands and singers, that Jane was in on it, and they were both taking a cut of the money that the band was being paid by the club to perform. This is very morally wrong and most likely illegal, but if it was true, this was huge. Over the course of 10 months or so, I set up multiple sting operations, using my contacts in music circles, to gather evidence of this. It turned out that the rumors were indeed true. Jane would tell the club that the band was charging £250, but pay them £200, keeping £50 for herself, and then Robert would charge them a £50 agent's fee for the gig. After some digging online, I found out Robert had even set up a fake agency company in order to look legit. I invested a hidden spy camera, asked my friends to record their meetings with Robert and Jane, as well as record all phone calls and to forward all emails sent between them. In the end, I had a big ring binder full of evidence of this shady operation. They were booking performers 3 times a week. Bear in mind that events such as Christmas and New Year's they charged upwards of £500 per band, and Jane had been entertainment manager for 20 years at this point with Robert as her right-hand man. That's at least £150 a week, if not more. I estimated they made roughly £2,000 a year from this, so over 20 years, that's at least £40,000 of undeclared income. I also went around my friends at the club that had suffered injustice at the hands of Jane and Robert. In total, I gathered 12 statements and over 50 signatures on a petition I created to remove Jane from her position as an entertainment manager and to remove all of Robert's influence over the entertainment bookings. It was finally time to put my plan into action. I went straight to the committee head with the statements, petition and the evidence of their fake agency scam that I had gathered. He took the file and went through it that evening, although I wasn't sure if he was on Jane and Robert's side. I had 3 encrypted digital copies in various places just in case he destroyed it. He called me the next day, and I was requested to be at the next committee meeting in 2 weeks' time as an independent witness, where they would confront Jane and Robert on their actions, and also if I could give a copy of my evidence to management. With pleasure. The day of the committee meeting came and it was glorious. At first, they both denied everything, but when faced with the hard evidence I had gathered, they knew they couldn't get out of it. Upon seeing the statements and petition, Jane broke down and cried. Robert looked deflated and defeated. The committee voted unanimously not just to remove Jane from her position as an entertainment manager, they voted to remove her from the committee altogether. The committee head told them that they would be seeking legal advice to try and recover the money they stole from the club, and to find out whether they could press charges against them for theft and fraud. As a final kick in the teeth, the management decided to revoke their memberships and ban both Jane and Robert from the club premises permanently and indefinitely. My hard work over 10 months paid off in spades, and within an hour I had brought their world crashing down around them. I'm normally a really empathetic person, but they brought this on themselves and I have no shred of sympathy at all. But I wasn't done. I also took my evidence of the fake agency scam and along with the management and committee of the club, reported both of them to the tax office for undeclared income, and the police for fraud. It took them a good few months to investigate, and it also transpired that Robert was regularly traveling abroad to Europe, buying copious amounts of tobacco, cigarettes and alcohol, smuggling them back into the country failing to pay the duty tax, and selling them for profit. The club was able to press charges against Jane and Robert for theft and fraud and sue them for the money they stole by skimming from the band fees. The tax office also took them to court for undeclared income, unpaid income tax and in Robert's case unpaid duty tax and unlawful sale of restricted goods. They were found guilty of all charges, each sentenced to suspended jail time, and ordered to repay the unpaid tax on their undeclared income, the unpaid duty and repay the club the money they stole as well as over £1,000 in compensation. The last I heard they had both been declared bankrupt and had their cars, houses and other valuables repossessed by the court to be auctioned off to pay back the money they owe. Finally, when I said I needed to make friends with pretty much everyone at the club for my end move. We just had the committee elections a couple of months ago, and I was elected as the entertainment manager with 96% of the vote. I am loving my new role, and everyone is happy with the bands I am booking and the entertainment I have put in place so far. I also have a monthly discussion meeting with any members who want to turn up, and ask for their input and suggestions, and what they want to have going on at the club, something which never happened under Jane and Robert's dictatorship. Thanks for listening.